got a half hour. No. I can burn it up, I'm sure. Okay, so today's sermon, it's taken me a really long time to put this together. I've been really waiting to see what God wanted me to preach on. And the topic I've come up with is drawing close to God and how to face trials. And to do this, we're going to start, of course, in the book of Job. So if you all would turn to Job chapter 1. And we're going to read from verse 1 to verse 22. It says, "In the land of Uz there was a man whose name was Job. This man was blameless and upright. He feared God and shunned evil. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters, and he owned 7,000 sheep and 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen and 500 donkeys, and had a number of servants. He was the greatest man among all the people of the East. The sons used to hold feasts in their homes on their birthdays, and they would invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. When a period of feasting had run its course, Job would make arrangements for them to be purified. Early in the morning, he would sacrifice a burnt offering for each of them, thinking, 'Perhaps my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts.' This was Job's regular custom. One day the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them. The Lord said to Satan, 'Where have you come from?' Satan answered the Lord, 'From roaming throughout the earth, going back and forth on it.' Then the Lord said to Satan, 'Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil.' 'Does Job fear God for nothing?' Satan replied. 'Have you not put a hedge around him and his household and everything he has? You have blessed the work of his hands, so that his flocks and herds are spread throughout the land. But now stretch out your hand and strike everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face.' The Lord said to Satan, 'Very well then, everything he has is in your power, but on the man himself do not lay a finger.' Then Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. One day when Job's sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house, a messenger came to Job and said, 'The oxen were plowing and the donkeys were grazing nearby, and the Sabaeans attacked and made off with them. They put the servants to the sword, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you.' While he was speaking, another messenger came and said, 'The fire of God fell from the heavens and burned up the sheep and servants, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you.' While he was speaking, another messenger came and said, 'The Chaldeans formed 3 raiding parties and swept down on your camels and made off with them. They put the servants to the sword, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you.' While he was still speaking, yet another messenger came and said, 'Your sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house, when suddenly a mighty wind swept in from the desert and struck the 4 corners of the house. It collapsed on them, and they are dead, and I am the only one who escaped to tell you.' At this, Job got up and tore his robe and shaved his head. Then he fell on the ground in worship and said, 'Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised.' In all this, Job did not sin by charging God with his wrongdoing." So, in verses 1 through 5, you see Job as a person, and we think, this must be the most amazing man of this time. He's focused on God, and even goes to the extent of trying to make sure his children are right with God. But as always, there is the behind the scenes that we don't see that goes on between God and Satan. And Job, knowing none of this, is just suffering all these tragedies, and he's thinking, what's going on? And he's freaking out. But yet, in the end, he still praises God, and that's just amazing. And as I was reading this, I was starting to think, one after the other, they come to him and they say, I'm the only one who escaped to tell you. I'm starting to think he might not have wanted anybody to escape to tell him. It was getting pretty bad. But just imagine facing everything that Job has faced, and in the end falling on the ground and praising God. It's really amazing. I can't believe it. And Satan is always looking to bring us down in trials and things, and sometimes God allows this to happen for us to grow and be molded and shaped into the people he wants us to be. And it's not an easy process, and it's hard, and it hurts. And Job found himself going through this. And as I said, Job didn't see the behind the scenes, and Job knows nothing of what's going on, and he is just crying out to God, as he should be in this chapter. I'm sure many of us have found ourselves in the face of a trial throughout life. Death of loved ones and finances and whatever it may be. And it's never easy. And some people choose to rely on the wrong things in a trial. Those things could be yourself, which that never works. I mean, look at Abraham with God promising he would give him a son, and he went ahead and against God, and it ended up creating a whole tribe that came against Israel in the long run from his other son, and it was a horrible situation. We should never put all the power of God on ourselves. We should never try to be God in our lives. If we do, it's going to end in tragedy, worse than what we're already facing. And Job, good thing he didn't trust in his friends. He had 3 friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar. And I don't know if you can call them friends by the end of the chapter or not, but they gave him a pretty good tongue lashing. And he really went through a tough time with that, as he was turning to the people he trusted, and they were just dragging the knife in. And sometimes that happens in life too. And then, of course, there's leaders in the Bible, evil kings. So you don't want to trust in your leaders. I don't think much has changed today when you look at our nation's leaders between the evil kings in the Bible and now. There's a verse in the Bible that says it's all been done before. Well, yeah, the evil kings thing's all been done before. Just changed from kings to presidents and dictatorships. But anyway, so the question is, why do we trust in these things? And the reason is because we don't want to give up control to God. We're afraid of God's power, and we're uncomfortable with what God may do in our situation. And that's a dangerous place to be, because God has put us here as servants of Him, and He is in control of us, and He will lead and orchestrate our lives as He sees fit. And if we interfere with that, then we're going to be outside of His will and facing worse than we're already facing. And He's putting us through the trials of life to shape and mold us, and we'll be better for it if we survive. And He will give us the strength to survive it. So the question is, what should we do in the face of trials, and who should we trust in? So now let's turn to Isaiah 40, 25 through 31. Starting in verse 25, it says, "To whom will you compare me? Or who is my equal, says the Holy One. Lift up your eyes and look to the heavens. Who created all these? Who brings out the starry host one by one, and calls them each forth by their name? Because of His great power and strength, not one of them is missing. Why do you complain, Jacob? Why do you say, Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord? My cause is disregarded by God. Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary. In His understanding no one can fathom. He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. So I'm sure all of you have heard this before. It's a very well-known verse of the Bible. And I find it very powerful through that section, especially as it says, "Do you not know, have you not heard, the Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary, and his understanding no one can fathom." It's a very powerful section of the Bible. And I decided to take this a little bit further and research the kind of history background around this. And there's quite a history. Let me just read to you the printout I made. What happened during this time was the Assyrians had just come and sieged on Jerusalem. And they had just gone, all these people had just gone through this horrific time, and Isaiah was just telling them to take heart, that God had it under control. And here's the background history. It says the Sennacherib, I probably slaughtered that, but claimed the siege and capture of many Judean cities, but only the siege, not capture, of Jerusalem. The story of the Assyrian siege is told in the Hebrew books of Isaiah, Chronicles, 2 Kings, and 2 Kings. As the Assyrians began their invasion, Hezekiah, which was the king of Israel at that time, began preparations to protect Jerusalem. In an effort to deprive the Assyrians of water, springs outside the city were blocked. Workers dug a 533-meter tunnel to the spring of Gihon, providing the city with fresh water. Additional siege preparations included fortification of the existing walls, construction of towers, and the erection of a new reinforcing wall. Hezekiah gathered the citizens in the square and encouraged them by reminding them that the Assyrians possessed only an army of flesh, but the Judeans had been protected by Yahweh. According to 2 Kings 18, when the Sennacherib was besieging Lachish, he received a message from Hezekiah offering to pay tribute in exchange for Assyrian withdrawal. According to the Hebrew Bible, Hezekiah paid 300 talents of silver and 30 talents of gold to Assyria, a price so heavy that he was forced to empty the temple and royal treasury of silver and strip the gold from the doorposts of Solomon's temple. Nevertheless, Sennacherib marched on to Jerusalem with a huge army. When the Assyrian force arrived, its field commander, Rabashakeh, brought a message from Sennacherib himself. In an attempt to demoralize the Judeans, the field commander announced to the people on the city walls that Hezekiah was deceiving them, and Yahweh could not deliver Jerusalem from the king of Assyria. He listed the gods of the people thus far swept away by the Sennacherib, and then asked, "Who of all of these gods of these countries has been able to save his land from me?" During the siege, Hezekiah clad himself in sackcloth out of anguish from the warfare that the Assyrians were waging. The prophet Isaiah took an active part in the political life of Judah. When Jerusalem was threatened, he assured Hezekiah that the city would be delivered and Sennacherib would fall. The Hebrew Bible states that during the night, an angel of Jehovah brought death to 185,000 Assyrian troops. Hezekiah had to shut all the water outside the city, so thirst and fatigue of a long and trying campaign possibly could have forced the Assyrians to retreat. It is also a possibility that a disease spread throughout the camp and killed a large number of Sennacherib's men. When Sennacherib saw the destruction on his army, he withdrew to Nineveh, and Jerusalem was spared destruction. Now, if that doesn't get your blood pumping, I don't know what does. God just races in. He lets them go through a trial. I mean, they're going through horrific things right now. And he races in the end and saves them from that army. And no one else has been saved from. They've been going all across the country, killing everybody off, taking their land, and they come to Jerusalem and they find something bigger. They find a God that can stop them. And that's just so powerful. And the fact that they weren't swayed, even with him standing on the wall and taunting them, and all of that. And they were lucky to have a good man of God behind their country there. So, what happens when we trust in God and His power? God intervenes. Is it in our time? Not always. Sooner or later, He's going to intervene, and He's going to come and save us from the battle with Him. And we're going to be stronger when we come out of it. Now we go back to Job. We're going to read Job 42, 7 through 17. It says, after the Lord had said these things to Job, He said to Eliphaz the Temanite, which remember this was one of Job's great friends that had been tongue-lashing him earlier. I am angry with you and your two friends, because you have not spoken the truth about me, as my servant Job has. So now take 7 bulls and 7 rams, and go to my servant Job, and sacrifice a burnt offering for yourselves. My servant Job will pray for you, and I will accept his prayer, and not deal with you according to your folly. He has not spoken the truth. You have not spoken the truth about me, as my servant Job has. So Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamite did what the Lord told them, and the Lord accepted Job's prayer. After Job had prayed for his friends, the Lord restored his fortunes and gave him twice as much as he had before. All his brothers and sisters and everyone who had known him before came and ate with him in his house. They comforted and consoled him over all the trouble that the Lord had brought on him, and each one gave him a piece of silver and a gold ring. The Lord blessed the latter part of Job's life more than the former part. He had 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 donkeys. And he also had 7 sons and 3 daughters. The first daughter named Jemiah, the second Keziah, and the third Karen Apooch. Nowhere in the land were there found women as beautiful as Job's daughters, and the father granted them an inheritance along with their brothers. After this, Job lived 140 years and saw his children and their children to the 4th generation. And so Job died, an old man full of years. So God not only interceded with Job's financial losses and relationship losses, but He also interceded on Job's behalf in the situation of the 2 friends, or 3 friends, I should say, that were giving Job such a hard time, and He took care of every situation and was able to intercede in Job's life in a way that Job could never imagine. And this didn't take the pain back of losing his family or any of the rest of it, but because he persevered, he became better than before, and God blessed him bigger than before, because he was truly one of His hardy servants that had held on to all of everything he had endured. And we see how God just pours out blessings on Job after. And Job even prays for his friends that had been so cruel to him. And because of that, the Lord heard his prayer and didn't put His wrath on them. So this is just an amazing story to me, and how it ties in with Isaiah. And when you're facing trials, all I can say is hang on, and it's not going to be easy, and it's going to be hard, but the Lord will come through, and He will save you from that. and He will create you to be something better than you were before, and you will be closer to God, because as you're going through that, the best thing you can do is draw as close to God as you can, and hang on to Him, and take His hand, and He will walk you through whatever trials you're facing. Let's pray. Lord, we thank You for this message. And we just pray today that You would work in our lives and work on our hearts, Lord. That You would just touch us and help us as we go through life and its trials and difficulties. And that You would give us strength that only comes from You and Your Spirit. And that You would help us through these trials to not become defeated, Lord, but to become stronger and to become better servants for You and to be able to reach more people and do more great things for Your kingdom, Lord. And we just pray this today in Your name. Amen. And now I'd like to have our song leaders come up and we will sing our closing song. On the screen, and if you're a traditionalist, you will find the words of the song in the Gold Book, number 66. Downstairs, we have a fellowship dinner.
Good job.